Okay. This is probably our last reading, right?
Ever? Of this book.
Of this book. So,
All right, we got 3 pages from the chapter, The Meaning of Surrender.
you're blurry.
That's okay. The power to choose. What about all those people who, it seems, actually want to suffer? I have a friend whose partner is physically abusive toward her, and her previous relationship was of a similar kind. Can't talk this morning. Why does she choose such men? And why is she refusing to get out of that situation now? Why do so many people actually choose pain? I know that the word choose is a favorite New Age term, but it isn't entirely accurate in this context. It is misleading to say that somebody chose a dysfunctional relationship or any other negative situation in his or her life. Choice implies consciousness, a high degree of consciousness. Without it, you have no choice. Choice begins the movement. You disidentify from the mind and its conditioned patterns the moment you become present. Until you reach that point, you are unconscious, spiritually speaking. This means that you are compelled to think, feel, and act in certain ways according to the conditioning of your mind. That is why Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do."
Hmm.
This is
So he's comparing the verse that Jesus says to unconsciousness.
yeah, they don't really have a choice, do they? When you live in the world of unconsciousness. Right. I think that's what he's saying.
It's a totally different verse now.
This means that you are compelled to think, feel, and act in certain ways according to the conditioning of your mind. That is why Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." This is not related to intelligence in the conventional sense of the word. I have met many highly intelligent and educated people who are also completely unconscious, which is to say, completely identified with their mind.
It's funny because you'd think if you're completely identified with your mind, that feels like cognition, that feels like
Right.
knowing, that feels like consciousness. But we know now that it's an illusion, that the mind is deceitful.
Having worked with highly intelligent people and educated people, we know that now, that they were completely unconscious.
Well, especially if you think consciousness and cognition is accumulation of facts
Yeah.
and information, then how lost are you then if you're not present in this moment of what is and always in the head, always in the cognition, always in your thinky thoughts and not in reality?
Hmm. Which is why they can stand in front of a classroom and seem so intelligent until you go home with them. Or until they come home, or till they come to live in your house.
I mean, that's why the disconnect is so profound because now here's all this information that seems wise, but if it's not lived in the present, it's just like going to watch a movie or reading a story and closing it and walking away and being a serial killer, like that one guy. One that one guy that you met that ended up he was a serial killer. I mean, he killed two wives. That's
Oh, yeah.
he probably would have killed a third if it wasn't for you and the that dog. Sorry. It's not funny, but it's weird. It's really weird to think about that.
I could just sit here and think about this. Just the disconnect between cognition and intelligence, right? And then yet, on one hand, and yet being totally, totally unconscious
That's why I always say
when it
that.
comes to the just practical,
Hmm.
everyday things of life. It's like, how can you be an expert on this discipline
That's it.
and yet be
Oblivious.
so poor at implementing it,
Just being present
say,
with yourself
in your personal life?
and able to see what is. It can be so wise about these philosophies and theories, and yet
Yeah,
in your own life, oblivious to the day-to-day present tense living out of those ideals and theories, which is the very definition of integrity, like actually integrating those lofty ideas and principles and theories into your practical everyday life right now. And that's the most lost of all because you're good, but you're not great. You're good. I mean, that's why I think good is the biggest enemy of the great, because it has an appearance, it has a form of wisdom. I think there's even a scripture about that. And there's tons of scriptures about seeing yourself walking away and forgetting what you saw, you know, that lived out.
it makes me think of what Shelby was saying about being a Christian.
Oh, and she said she didn't want to be a Christian. She wanted to be a Christ follower.
Yes, because once again, you have the theoretical aspect of what Christianity is,
Hmm.
but it's called the way for a reason, because it's a living out
Out.
of that.
So a way is very much, I mean, I know it's a noun, but it's very much about the verb of this life, the way you live it out, the way you treat others, the way you speak, the way you think. It's very
Yeah,
verb.
which is why Jesus refers to it as the narrow way, because a lot of people can know about it, but to actually walk that path, that's a totally different thing. That's when it becomes narrow.
Well, again, I think narrow means that you are constantly having to pull yourself into the present tense and say, okay, what does this mean now?
Now,
What does this mean here?
now.
What does this ideal or tradition mean juxtaposed against the reality of this person I love who's not living a traditional way? And I have to now balance, like on the rooftop, Fiddler on the Roof again, between these lofty ideas and the lived reality of a person I love, maybe even myself grappling with reality, the reality of addiction, the reality of whatever challenges our traditional ideas of what good is. And now I have this narrow way that I have to walk where I'm not choosing to abandon them, but I'm not choosing to abandon this idea either. So I've got to hold both in tension. And that's why I think it's narrow. That's why I think it's the Fiddler on the Roof. That's why I think it's the way of love is narrow.
You know what I think can happen is I think belief, the whole idea of belief, right? And maybe you could call it theory because it's a belief, right? In these espoused ideas.
Ideal.
But what happens is belief and theory get caught up in the past and in the future.
Yes.
And that's what Christianity has pretty much, evangelical Christianity has been reduced to. Saved from the past, right? You're sinful, blah, blah, blah. And now you're going to heaven,
Future.
future. And that's all. But that's the past, that's the future. But the way is concerned of
The right now.
is the isness, is the right now. But what about right now? How are we applying the way to the right now, the here and now of our lives? And I think it pretty much boils down to that.
It's funny because it's in a kind of insanity to live always in the present. I mean, always in the past or always in the future. And yet most of us do that. We're not in the now. We're in an idea.
Yeah, we're really dealing with the guilt, right? The regret of the past or the anxiousness, of what's going to come in the future.
But I don't even know that we're dealing with the guilt and the anxiousness of a real past. I think it's an idea, it's a story of the past. So even then, I don't even know how real it is because every past is just a story or an idea. Every past is just a theory, a story, an idea, because we're never in the past. We only have a story about it. So even then, I don't know how real it is. And of course, same with the future. The only thing real is right now, is us talking, drinking our coffee. Like this is the only real now. Whatever that looks like, driving to work, whatever the now is. And that's the last place we live because while we're driving to work, we're thinking about our day. We're thinking about what happened yesterday. We're thinking about how we're going to pay our mortgage or our rent. Like how rarely are we really in right now in the present? And that's where we're called to be. And it's hard. And the thing is, the temptation is to be dualistic again and think, okay, if you're not in the present tense, you're bad or wrong. It's not that. It's just we're missing so much. It's okay to reminisce about good times and memories or regret past things and feel repentant about it. It's okay to dream about a future, to make plans. But if that's the only place we live and we're never in the now, that will one day be a good memory or is the fruit of our good plan, then we're missing our entire life.
I think that the Latin phrase is, I think it's Luxus orandi, Luxus credendi. I'm not sure if I'm saying those right, but
Mm. Are you trying to seduce me?
what those phrases mean are show me how you live, and I'll show you what you believe.
I've heard you say that. I
It's
didn't realize it.
orthopraxy, what it is.
Orthopraxy, yes.
Show me how you live, and I'll show you what you believe. And I'll show you what you believe. And it boils down to that.
What does ortho mean? Like we have orthodox. You remember what the root ortho means? Alexa, what does the root ortho mean?
It shows something. Straightening bones.
Following correct doctrine.
It means correct.
Yeah, correct.
So
Correct.
the correct orthopraxy is the correct practice. Orthodoxy is a correct doctrine or belief system.
Mm-hmm.
So ortho correct, praxy practice, correct practice. So it's a rule of life, right?
Mm-hmm. Anyways, let's finish this up. In fact, if mental development and increased knowledge are not counterbalanced by a corresponding growth in consciousness, the potential for unhappiness and disaster is very great. Wow.
Well, because you lose your center. You lose the now.
By a corresponding growth in consciousness. If mental development and increased knowledge are not counterbalanced by a corresponding growth in consciousness, the potential for unhappiness and disaster is very great. That is so true. We've kind of seen it played out.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about the age we are. We're in our 60s. So now is when all our hard work is supposed to pay off, you know? And we've invested in our kids. So our kids are going to reciprocate that investment and care for us, or at least show us affection and acceptance, right? That doesn't always happen. We've invested in our job, so we're supposed to end up with a good pension and a good retirement and the favor of men. That doesn't always turn out. So now you've spent your whole life towards this future investment where there's supposed to be this reciprocal payoff, and it's not realized because of the tragic sense of life. And now you have no skills to live in this present moment and the vast richness of the citron tree and the flowers in our yard and
Mm-hmm.
the the coffee that we're drinking and the feeling of enoughness in our bones. Like we don't know how to do that because our whole life has been this future trajectory. And now we have no skills to live in the present tense.
Right. So you pretty much just settle for what you know and you're familiar with. It's funny because the very next 2, 3 sentences
Mm.
are sentences I've already thought.
What do you mean by you settle for? Elaborate on that. You settle for
for
what?
what you're familiar with.
What does that mean?
Well, the reason you have no choice is because you settle for chaos. You settle for what is familiar, for what you've always known.
Oh, so like those mental
like-
patterns that are those habits of
Yeah, like the
worrying and
girl who my
striving.
parents kind of adopted, and uh, you would think everything's fine because she has a stable home now, and loving
Mm-hmm.
adults in her life and blah blah blah. But she just could not stay away from the chaos because the chaos is the only thing she's familiar with.
But think about what the chaos is. The chaos is what keeps the ego alive because the ego needs chaos. The ego needs problems. And so for it to survive, it either needs chaos or it needs to create chaos
Yeah.
because that's what keeps it alive.
So she really has no choice because that consciousness hasn't been developed
Hmm.
in her, in that person, and they are just unconscious.
So the
Unconscious to the chaos,
ability
unconscious.
to be conscious is the ability to be content right where you are because that's what is, and to not argue with reality. And it seems so simple, but it's so difficult because our ego and our thinky thoughts want a problem. They need a problem. That's what makes me have purpose. And it's okay for our ego to help us solve problems, but when we need it, when we need problems, we've lost our center. We've lost our present tense. We've lost our way, the way again. Wow.
Yeah. It says your friend is stuck in a relationship with an abusive partner, and not for the first time. Why? No choice. The mind, conditioned as it is by the past, always seeks to recreate what it knows and is familiar with. Even if it is painful, at least it is familiar. The mind always adheres to the known. The unknown is dangerous because it has no control over it. You're right, you just said that. That's why the
And the
mind,
ego has nothing to do. If you're accepting what is and you're not finding fault with it, and oh, I've got to have a problem. I need to have a problem to feel alive, then you're going to be discontent with content and with what is because you don't feel alive unless you have a problem to solve or something to fix. It's an addiction to that, needing to, almost like we talked about, needing to be the service provider. Like, I think it's an easy trap for Christians or people of faith to fall into.
Mhm.
I need to fix somebody. I need to solve something. I need to be the solution provider. And it's this addiction that is anything but accepting the reality of what's right in front of you,
Mhm.
which is the most loving thing you can do.
Yeah.
Love what is.
Yeah. That's why the mind dislikes and ignores the present moment. Present moment awareness creates a gap, not only in the stream of mind, but also in the past future continuum. Nothing truly new and creative can come into this world except through the gap,
Oh, there's the gap again.
the narrow way,
Wow.
that clear space of infinite possibility.
See, that's interesting because that's vision. And vision can only exist in the present tense. That's the irony. Is to totally be present with what is what yields vision, is what yields the creative force. It's not a lack of vision. It's the only way you can get to vision is by being completely here in this moment.
Can't tell me that Jesus was not a mystic. The narrow way, that narrow cap of what is. That's it. That's what the gap is. It's the is part.
And I'm so glad that I read Loving What Is by Byron Katie in the 90s because I don't think, had I not read that book, I don't think I could get this. I think I needed that foundation and I didn't even understand it then, but at least I knew there was something to it, you know? And now reading this, it's like all the dots are connecting. And I'm seeing this is the kingdom. The kingdom of God is now. We're never going to have more kingdom than we have right now. And if we don't see that, we're never going to be able to see the kingdom in the first place. If we don't realize that it's now, right here, we're never going to know it. We're never going to know it because it will continue to elude us as an idea of something out there that we imagine is perfect, not realizing that now is perfect. Right now is the kingdom. Jesus was a mystic.
What is blowing my mind is just the irony of you can't get to the eternal, you can't get to the infinite, until you come to this small, small, fine point of here and now and of what is.
The narrow way of
The
love.
The narrow way.
The narrow way of
The
love.
narrow way of love. And then once you get to that point, the rest just blows wide open.
It expands. And that's why we say this is expanding your compassion. What you're going through, your child coming to you, suffering, and you being able to do nothing about it but love them is expanding your compassion.
Yeah.
It's this little tiny thing that has come to you like an irritation, right? In the shell that's grinding, but there's this pearl that's expanding and expanding and expanding in that irritation that pearl can only be yielded by this suffering, this irritation that's going round and round and round and round through this tiny, tiny, tiny little crack. Tiny, tiny little crack.
Stops you cold, man.
And then what does it do? Once it gets in there, it expands into this treasure.
Yeah.
It's such a great metaphor.
It is.
Pearl of great price. And that pearl cost something. It cost something because it let that little irritant in, that little rough rocky sand to come in.
Mm-hmm.
It cost something. Pearl of great price, a pearl of great cost. It doesn't happen in.
And that's what the tragic sense of life does. It brings you to that it brings you to the gap. Brings you to that fine little crack where nothing else matters anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Past, future.
Right.
None of that matters when you're sitting in that suffering, in that pain, in that grief.
That is through, despite all your work to make sure your life is secure, it found a way in that tiny, tiny little narrow way. Thank God. Thank God.
It's the gap of what is. That's what it is. The isness. The here and now.
It's the present.
What is right here and nothing else. I'll tell you what, nothing else matters after that.
And you know why it's narrow? Because what's the most narrow point in time? not the past. The past expands back 60 years, not the future. That could be another 20. This moment is gone. This moment is gone.
And
It's this
yet,
tiny, narrow little dot in this continuum is the present.
and
That's the
yet,
narrow.
and yet, in that little moment of time, that's where infinity is. It's just,
Well, and of course, I mean, I'm going to go mystic, but that's when I know time is a construct. I mean, there is no past and there is no future. There's only right now. And if there's only right now forever, then it is eternal.
and that's
The now is eternal, especially if you're a person of spirit that believes we don't die just in our, if our soul is alive beyond our breathing and our last breath, then the now, this moment is eternity.
and that's why I love John Geyer. He calls it, what does he call it? The eternal moment.
Eternal,
It's an oxymoron.
the
The
eternal now.
moment, the eternal now. He gets that from some, I think, patristic father, but he uses it a lot. It's the eternal now, the eternal moment.
And yet,
These moments are eternal.
if you're looking at a time on a continuum, it's what is it? It's now, 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 now. It's these little dots of now
Mhm.
that will always be. But we put it in this construct and we miss it. We identify with everything as past or future when they're all just a series of now, 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 now. And we miss the now.
Nothing truly new and creative can come into this world except through that gap, that clear space of infinite possibility. You know what it is also? It's the Shalom.
Well, and I also think of the eternal Christ. Nothing has been made that is not made of God. You look at John 1. So if that's true, then that Christy Christness is always. It's always. It's not this 30 years in time. If we really take John 1 seriously and believe that in the beginning was the Word or Christ, and Christ is and has and always will be, then Christ is the ultimate nowness. He's our ultimate present tense. And if we're made of Christ, then that changes the whole verse of no man can get to the Father except through their Christy Christ nowness. I mean, if he is the epitome of the now, because he's us, because we are Christy Christness, and no man can get to the Father, no man can know the kingdom except through now, except through the now.
I think this pretty much describes the dream I had, where I woke up like at 3 o'clock and it was so vivid about the words. And God was telling me, I'm not in the words. I'm in the space between them. I'm in the gap.
Because words are the stuff of past and future.
Mm-hmm. So you even have to get past that in a way. And if you want to find me, you have to find me in that gap, in that limit.
Yeah, because words are just a tool that we use to describe the now. So we either read about the now in the past or we talk about the now in the future. But this moment, this silence, this Salah that has no words.
Created by the word, but you have to actually get even past that to the space, to the gap.
It's funny because even the word, we misunderstand the word because word or logos, right, is means meaning. Meaning. That's what logos is meaning.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it is. Reason, meaning.
well, meaning. So in the beginning was meaning, and the meaning was with God, and the meaning was God. And nothing has been made that's not made of meaning. So meaning exists without vocabulary, without symbology of letters and words. The meaning is even deeper beyond me as a writer. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't require verbalization.
Well, try to describe love.
Hmm.
The only thing that can describe love or come close to it is poetry, right?
It's funny because Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning and he did logotherapy. And the meaning for him to get through Holocaust, like he was trying to, he developed it because he was trying to figure out why some people survived the Holocaust and others did not. And what he came to conclude was that the people who survived had meaning that was waiting for them. There was meaning, there was purpose to their suffering. And what he concluded that meaning was 99.9% of the time was love. Was love, like the love of a spouse waiting for you, the love of your children waiting for you, even the love of your violin waiting for you to pick up your calling and your vocation was a kind of love. And he paralleled that with meaning, with logos, and created logotherapy out of that. Not a Christian, but saw logos as love and meaning. And that was the thing that kept people going. It's ironic.
Just recently, they sainted this priest who, during World War II in a concentration camp, when they were leading someone to their death, the priest stepped forward and the person did not want to die. Obviously, he was begging and pleading. So the priest stepped forward and says, "Can I take his place?" And I think this person had kids. And the priest stepped forward, "Can I take his place?" And they said, "Yes." So they took him.
I think of Hunger Games. Can I volunteer as tribute?
Can we find the words to describe what he did?
Greater love. Greater love has no man or woman.
Was that not the narrow way?
Well, think about all the times that plays out in other ways. Like you give up the dream that you want to be a professional football coach and you lay down that life so that you can raise a family with stability. That's greater love than to lay down your life, your dream for the people you love. I mean, that's what I think of. I think of Tommy wanting to leave this job, making lots of money, but he's halfway across the country to be a, a head of maintenance at his kid's school because he wants to be near his kids. That's greater love. You're laying down your vision of your life, of what it's supposed to be. I mean, not everyone's going to physically lay down their life, but aren't there other ways we lay down our life because we care about another? We put aside our ego, we put aside our what we think is our life, our idea of our life for the person right in front of us, rather than for the ideal. Aren't there lots of
You could almost
ways?
say you could say there's no greater love, but you could also say there's no greater consciousness.
Hmm.
There's no greater consciousness. There's no greater being awake, fully awake, than to hold onto an ideal through your mind, through your intelligence, or by laying down your life and act. an act of following the Christ or the Christ consciousness.
I just think about how many churches split because here's this real person wanting to serve in the church, and here's these people with all these ideas of shouldy, and they abandon the person right in front of them who's trying to love them and serve them for this idea of what should be, this doctrinal idea or this, and they abandon the person right in front of them for this idea. Not only abandon them, but are cruel because of this idea that they think is God when God is standing right in front of them.
Yeah.
And they drive God out on a rail or a cross.
So your friend being identified with her mind may be recreating a pattern learned in the past in which intimacy and abuse are inseparably linked. Alternatively, she may be acting out of a mind pattern learned in early childhood, according in which she is unworthy and deserves to be punished. It is possible too that
Because it's familiar.
that she lives a large part of her life through the pain body, which always seeks more pain on which to feed. Her partner has his own unconscious patterns, which complement hers. Of course, her situation is self-created, but who or what is the self that is doing the creating? A mental emotional pattern from the past, no more. Why make a self out of it? Why make a self out of it? If you tell her that she has chosen her condition or situation, you are reinforcing her state of mind identification. But is her mind pattern who she is? Is it herself? Is her true identity derived from the past? Show your friend how to be the observing presence behind her thoughts and her emotions. Tell her about the pain body and how to free herself from it. Teach her the art of inner body awareness. Demonstrate to her the meaning of presence. As soon as she is able to access the power of the now and thereby break through her conditioned past, she will have a choice. Nobody chooses dysfunction, conflict, pain. Nobody chooses insanity. They happen because there is not enough presence in you to dissolve the past. Not enough light to dispel the darkness. You are not fully here. You have not quite woken up yet. In the meantime, the conditioned mind is running your life.
It's an unreliable narrator. That's what the conditioned mind is.
Which is why I said every time I drove away from the prison, of course they're here. Where else would they be?
It's the unreliable narrator that we let narrate our story without questioning it, without asking, is that true? Is that really true? Because it's familiar. Because it's familiar.
Which is where we get the expression, the clients, the patients are running the asylum. They're running the chaos because that is what they have been conditioned to.
That's what feels normal.
They don't have a choice. Similarly, if you are one of the many people who have an issue with their parents, if you still harbor resentment about something they did or did not do, then you still believe that they had a choice,
Mhm.
that they could have acted differently. It always looks as if people had a choice, but that is an illusion.
Not if
Which,
they're unconscious. If they're unconscious, they don't have a choice.
yeah, which
They're,
Greg
yeah.
Boyle says all these people come to serve there at Homebody, and you know what they say to all the clients and the people there? They say, well, you have to make better choices.
Yeah.
They say the difference between me and you is that
I made better
I made better
choices.
choices. It always goes back to that.
Wow.
And Greg's like, they didn't have any choices.
It makes me think of that
And
verse,
that
the
dysfunction is
poor
wrong.
you will always have with you.
Yeah.
It makes me think of it in
Wow.
terms of the unconscious you will always have with you.
Wow, that's really interesting. You will always have people with you
Who
who
are
don't have choices,
who are
who
unconscious
don't have
of
choice.
choice. They're unconscious of choice.
Yeah.
They are listening to the unreliable narrator, and that's their story, and they're sticking to it. That's their story, and they're sticking to it. And what else could they do? What else could they do? Just like Father Greg Boyle says, what else could they be? Of course.
Yes, and you know where they get to the point of where they'll be able to make choices is when they finally begin to realize that all of this past, all of this chaos, all of this dysfunction had nothing to do with them,
With who their true self
with
is.
who they truly are. And then that's when choice comes into their life. When they see their wealth, they see the wealth of who they are. Realize that none of this was anything that they chose for
It makes
themselves.
me think of that scene in the movie with Matt Damon and Robin Williams, Good Will Hunting, where he says,
Yes,
it's not your
it's
fault.
not your fault.
And he's like, I know. It's not your fault. Yeah. It's not
Your fault.
your fault. And he breaks down because he finally realizes it's not who he really is.
Yes.
That he's been listening to the unreliable narrator
Yeah.
that's telling him it's your fault. You've done something. You could have done something to change this. It's the condition of man. It's a condition of humankind. That's why the poor we will always have with us. Because we're all the poor.
Yes.
We're all the poor to a certain extent.
Yeah. It always looks as if people had a choice, but that is an illusion. As long as your mind, with its conditioned patterns, runs your life, as long as you are your mind, what choice do you have? None. You are not even there.
It's like you're in a hypnotic state.
Yes.
And your mind is conditioned that
Yes.
this, that, and the
A
other.
hypnotic state. And I tell you what, that's what I saw in all of these men, Dave. This glazed over look, hypnotic look in their eyes. It is a form of insanity. Almost everyone is suffering from this illness in varying degrees. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
We all are. The moment you realize this, there can be no more resentment.
The moment you realize it, there can be no more resentment.
There can be no more resentment.
It's funny that's.
How can you, let me just finish these last two lines. How can you resent someone's illness?
Mm-hmm.
The only appropriate response is compassion. And that's what I felt when I drove away every day from work. How can I have compassion? How can I have such love for these men?
Mm.
So that means nobody is responsible for what they do. Oh, you know.
Oh, is that the question?
Yeah.
The little italicized question guy. What does he say?
So nobody is responsible for what they do?
Oh my gosh,
I don't like that idea.
that sounds like every single person that resists this
Yes.
idea.
If you are run by your mind.
That's the ego again.
Yeah.
Well,
That's right.
I make the right choices, and
the right choice.
I'm a good person, and I help my neighbor, and I don't live off other people, and I make good choices.
Like, don't you realize they didn't have any choices? And you're the same way right now.
Right now,
Right
by
now.
thinking that you're better
That's right.
is a story in your head
That's
that
right.
you're enslaved by, that I have to be the service provider and the superior one.
Yep.
And that's its own poverty that will always be with
That's
you.
its own type of insanity. If you are run by your mind, although you have no choice, you will still suffer the consequences of your unconsciousness, and you will create further suffering. You will bear the burden of fear, conflict, problems, and pain. The suffering thus created will eventually force you out of your unconscious state. Wow.
Read that last line again.
If you are run by the mind, although you have no choice, you will still suffer the consequences of your unconsciousness, and you will create further suffering. You will bear the burden of fear, conflict, problems, and pain. The suffering thus created will eventually force you out of your unconscious state.
That's the pearl of great price.
So the tragic sense of life. That
That's
is
the
so
sand
beautiful.
that gets in there and
Yeah,
pain, 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 pain.
they're gifts. They're gifts
They're dark gifts, but they're
that
gifts.
force us out of our unconsciousness. And if we don't, it's just going to continue to create further suffering. Further fears, further conflict, further problems, further pain.
Until it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, until it's so vast that.
Yes. It stops you dead in your tracks.
And then we have to choose.
Yes.
Either to go deeper into unconsciousness, into this hypnotic state where we blame everybody for our suffering, or
Yeah.
we look at reality and we're not afraid of it anymore, and we see it as a gift. And then we can really know love because we're not living a made up story anymore.
And forgiveness.
And that's what I think of when I think of that verse. I never knew you. It isn't about you're a bad person. It's about you've never inhabited your own life. You've been living a life that's been told by the unreliable narrator in your head. You've never been fully present in your own life. You don't know you. Know your belovedness. Know yourself. Know your worthiness as you are, as is, not as you should be, not as you were, but right now. And can we truly be known? Can we, if we don't know ourselves in this present moment, if we're always creating these false masks and these stories to make ourselves worthy, that we've never lived an authentic life. And how can we be known if we're not authentic?
Mm-hmm.
in all its complexity.
Yeah. What you say about choice also applies to forgiveness, I suppose. You need to be fully conscious and surrendered before you can forgive. Forgiveness is a term that has been in use for 2,000 years, but most people have a very limited view of what it means. You cannot truly forgive yourself or others as long as you derive your sense of self from the past.
And from your story that you've told yourself that makes you worthy. Because I did this and I made this choice and this is what makes me worthy. And then we live according to that. Then why do we need forgiveness? And why do we need to forgive? If there's this door A instead of door B, there's no point of forgiveness. You just maintain the illusion.
Only through accessing the power of the now, which is your own power, can there be true forgiveness.
Your authentic power.
This renders the past powerless. And you realize deeply that nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you could touch even in the slightest the radiant essence of who you are. This renders the past powerless, and you realize deeply that nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you could touch, even in the slightest, the radiant essence of who you are. The whole concept of forgiveness then becomes unnecessary.
Brennan Manning, did you know that I loved you? Did you know that I loved you? That's the question we're going to be asked. Did you know
Did you know
that I loved
you?
you, your authentic self, not all the things you did to impress me, not all the things you did to disappoint me, did you know that I loved the essence of you, past, present, future? Were you ever aware of your belovedness yourself? Because if you're not, how can you be aware of someone else's belovedness outside of changing them, outside of fixing them, outside of even forgiving them? It renders forgiveness almost redundant.
This renders the past powerless, and you realize deeply that nothing you ever did or that was ever done to you could touch even in the slightest the radiant essence of who you are. And how do I get to that point of realization? When you surrender to what is, and so become fully present, the past ceases to have any power. You do not need it anymore. Presence is the key. The now is the key. That small gap, huh? How will I know when I have surrendered? The italicized, how will I know when I have surrendered? When you no longer need to ask the question. You don't have to ask the question.
Is that it?
That's it. When do I need to know when I have surrendered? When you don't have to ask that question anymore.
Well, I'm not there yet.
Neither am I.
But hopefully eventually. All right. Well,
That's why it's called the way, huh?
Namaste.
Because it's constant.
What's our next book going
You
to
don't
be?
come to a point of arrival or arrivedness. Huh?
Finish your thought.
That's it. That's why it's always the way.
Oh, because it's a continual journey, not an arrivedness.
Unfortunately,
It's
we've
good.
we've made it a place
Of arrival.
of heaven.
Right. We've made it a terminal space instead of a formational space.
Yeah, it's constant. It's always going because it's infinite.
Well, that's what I loved what Shelby said. I don't want to be a Christian. I want to follow Christ
Yeah.
because that's a way, not an arrival. All right. Namaste.
Namaste.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.